The human explorer, Jason, stepped out of the shuttle and onto the surface of the alien planet. The bright twin suns hung high in the sky, casting long shadows across the rocky landscape. The air was thin but breathable, and the temperature was mild, perfect for exploration. Jason had been on many planets before, but something about this one felt different. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but there was a sense of calm in the air. "All systems check," he said to himself, his voice low. He looked around at the barren terrain and then to his team, who were busy setting up camp nearby. His mission was simple: gather data, take some samples, and then head back to the Federation. But as he set up his equipment, Jason couldn't help but feel that something extraordinary was about to happen. His mind wandered as he worked, focusing on the task at hand. That's when he saw her. She stood at the edge of the clearing, just barely visible behind a cluster of tall, silver-leaved trees. The alien girl had long, flowing hair that shimmered in the light of the twin suns. Her skin was a soft shade of lavender, and her eyes, though distant, seemed to be watching him with a quiet curiosity. She was unlike anything Jason had ever seen. He had heard stories of alien species across the galaxy, but none like this one. Jason stood frozen for a moment, unsure of what to do. He hadn't expected to find intelligent life on this planet, at least not in such close proximity. He glanced back at his team, but they were too busy to notice the strange sight. "Is she?" Jason whispered to himself, barely audible over the wind. He was so captivated by her beauty that he forgot to think about the protocol. His heart raced as he studied her from a distance. "She's beautiful," he said, almost absent-mindedly. The words escaped his lips before he realized it. Felt embarrassed for a moment, but it was true. She was unlike anything he had ever seen, with an elegance and grace that seemed to belong to another world, as if on cue. The alien girl stepped forward, revealing herself fully from behind the trees. She moved with a fluid, almost dreamlike motion, her eyes locked onto Jason's. Jason felt his heart skip a beat. He quickly stood up, trying to act normal, but inside his mind was racing. What did she want? Was she friendly? Or was she a threat? Stopped a few feet away from him, still staring. Her face was calm, but there was something in her eyes that Jason couldn't place an understanding. Maybe a connection? He wasn't sure. Jason took a tentative step forward. He had read all the reports on first contact with alien species, but none of them had prepared him for this. What should he do? How should he speak to her? He opened his mouth to say something but hesitated. Was it safe to approach her? Could she understand him? The questions raced through his mind, but then he noticed something strange. The alien girl's lips twitched ever so slightly, and it looked like she was trying to smile. "Hello," Jason said softly, his voice unsure. He didn't know if she would understand him, but he had to try. The alien girl's eyes softened. She took another step toward him, her movements graceful and almost fluid. Her presence felt peaceful, as if the very air around her was calm and still. Jason could feel himself drawn to her, not just by her beauty, but by the energy she radiated. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They stood there, two beings from different worlds, trying to make sense of each other. Jason felt a sense of awe building inside him. This was why he became an explorer, to witness things like this, to be the first human to encounter a species like her. "Do you understand me?" Jason asked, his voice tentative. He wondered if she could understand the words, or if it was all just noise to her. The alien girl tilted her head slightly, her long hair shimmering in the light. It seemed like she was contemplating his words. Then, to his surprise, she nodded slowly. Jason blinked. "You can understand me." She nodded again, and this time her lips parted, and she spoke. Her voice was soft, melodic, but Jason couldn't understand the words. The language was unlike anything he had ever heard. He took a step back, trying to process what had just happened. This wasn't just a curious alien. This was an intelligent being. She was aware, and she could understand him. Jason looked around, trying to figure out how to proceed. His team was still unaware of what was happening. Should he call them over? No, that would be too sudden. It was best to approach this situation slowly and cautiously. Maybe... Maybe I should try something else, he muttered to himself. He had no idea what he was doing, but something told him that this alien girl, this beautiful creature, wasn't a threat. She wasn't like the others he had encountered in his travels. There was something different about her. He couldn't help himself. Looking at her again, he whispered almost to himself, "She's beautiful." He didn't mean for her to hear it. It was just a fleeting thought, something he didn't expect to say aloud. But it felt right, like the words had been there. Whole time waiting to be said, Jason turned, thinking she hadn't heard him. But when he looked back, he saw something that caught him off guard. The alien girl was smiling. It wasn't just a polite smile. It was something deeper, as if she understood more than he realized. Little did Jason know, the words he had spoken were more than just a compliment. They had changed everything.
About that.
Alien girl could hear him. She had understood every word. Jason watched as the alien girl's smile grew slightly wider. She didn't speak, but there was a knowing look in her eyes, as if she understood something he hadn't said aloud. For a moment, Jason was speechless. He had no idea how to respond. This wasn't like any first contact he had experienced before. In most encounters, communication was a struggle. But with her, it felt like something more, something deeper. She stepped closer. Her movements graceful and deliberate, her lavender skin glowing softly in the light of the twin suns. Jason found himself frozen in place, his eyes locked on hers. There was something about her presence that made everything else fade away. The rustling of leaves, the hum of the shuttle in the distance, none of it mattered in that moment. It was just the two of them, standing there in the middle of an alien world. Jason swallowed hard. He had spent years studying alien species, learning their languages, their cultures. But nothing had prepared him for this. He wasn't just looking at an alien, he was looking at someone, something who was more than just different. She was beautiful, and not just in the way she looked, but in the way she carried herself, in the way she seemed to radiate an inner calm. He couldn't help but be drawn to her. The alien girl paused a few feet away from him, her eyes studying him carefully. Jason didn't know if she was waiting for him to say something, or if she was just watching him, observing. He cleared his throat, trying to find the right words. I didn't mean to. I didn't know you could hear me, he said awkwardly. I wasn't trying to. The alien girl raised a hand, silencing him. Her expression remained serene, and Jason could tell that she wasn't offended by his words. It was as if she understood that it was a simple, honest mistake. Then, in a voice that was soft but clear, she spoke. Her words were strange, unlike anything Jason had ever heard. They were musical, flowing with a kind of rhythm that was both calming and mysterious. Jason strained to understand, but the words were unfamiliar. He frowned slightly, feeling a wave of frustration. He wanted to communicate, to understand her, but he couldn't. The alien girl seemed to sense his frustration. She took another step. Forward, this time closer than before, and she held out her hand, palm facing up. Jason stared at it for a moment, unsure of what she wanted. She repeated the gesture, and slowly, Jason reached out, hesitating just for a second before gently placing his hand in hers. The moment their hands touched, something happened. It wasn't like anything Jason had experienced before. There was a warmth in her touch, but it was more than just physical warmth. It felt familiar, as if they had known each other for much longer than just a few minutes. A strange sensation washed over him, and his mind seemed to clear. For a brief instant, he could almost understand her words, the meaning behind them, without her having to say them aloud. Jason blinked, pulling his hand away, stunned. What was that? He whispered, almost to himself. The alien girl smiled. Again, her eyes full of something Jason couldn't quite name. She didn't answer with words, but her gaze seemed to tell him that this was just the beginning. She wasn't here to harm him. In fact, she was showing him something important. Jason took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. His mind raced as he thought about the possibilities. Was this some kind of telepathic connection, or was it just the alien girl's way of sharing her thoughts with him? Whatever it was, it felt different from anything he had experienced before. Are you able to understand me now? Jason asked, still unsure of how to approach the situation. He didn't want to offend her, but he needed to know more. The alien girl nodded slowly, and Jason's heart skipped a beat. "You understand me?" he asked, his voice a little more hopeful this time. She nodded again and spoke softly, her words still foreign but somehow clearer. "I understand you," she said. Her voice wasn't perfect, but there was a definite effort in her tone. Eyes widened in surprise. Double quotes. "You can speak my language?" Jason asked, astonished. He had never encountered an alien species that could speak English, let alone understand it so quickly. It was almost too much to believe. The alien girl shook her head gently, her lavender hair falling softly over her shoulders. "Not all of it," she said, her voice melodic. "But I can understand you." She seemed to pause, choosing her words carefully. "And you understand me?" she added with a smile, as if it were a simple truth that had always been there. Jason blinked, trying to process what she had said. He was certain this encounter was beyond ordinary. The alien girl, despite her otherworldly appearance, was more like him than he had ever expected.
Ow.
She wasn't just an alien species. She was an individual, capable of communication, capable of understanding. "Well, guess we're off to a good start," Jason said, his voice slightly shakier than he intended. He gave her a small, awkward smile, hoping she would see his genuine interest. "I'm Jason," he said, offering her his hand once more. A gesture of friendship. The alien girl regarded his hand for a moment before she took it gently in hers. "I am Lyra," she replied, her voice warm, like the gentle breeze that rustled the trees around them. "It is good to meet you, Jason." Jason's heart raced, but not from fear. This was something else entirely. Something that went beyond. The fear of the unknown. It was excitement, wonder, and curiosity all mixed together. This wasn't just a first contact mission anymore. This was the start of something new, something he couldn't yet understand fully. But he was willing to try. Lyra's smile deepened, and in that moment, Jason knew that his life had just changed forever. They weren't so different after all. And this connection, this strange, unexpected bond, was only the beginning. Jason couldn't stop thinking about Lyra. After their brief interaction, he felt a sense of calm that he hadn't experienced before. He had expected fear, excitement, or even confusion, but instead he felt a deep sense of curiosity and wonder. It was as if everything around him had slowed down, and all he could focus on was the alien girl who had somehow understood him as the days passed. Jason found himself spending more and more time with Lyra. They communicated in broken phrases. At first, with Jason trying his best to understand her alien language, and Lyra slowly learning his, each time they met, they managed to bridge the gap between them a little more. At first, their conversations were simple. Jason would point to things around him, rocks, trees, and the strange wildlife that roamed the planet. Lyra would respond in her melodic voice, using her own language to describe the objects. Jason struggled to understand her at first, but it became clear that Lyra was patient. She didn't rush him or expect perfection. She simply allowed him to take his time. One day, as they sat by a bubbling stream, Jason tried again. "This river," he said, trying to remember the words. He had learned from her. "What do you call it?" Lyra smiled, her eyes lighting up. "Mira," she said softly. "It means flowing in my language." Jason repeated the word slowly, testing the sound in his mouth. "Mira," he said with a nod. It was strange, but it felt right. He had never thought he would be learning an alien language, yet here he was, doing just that. Learning," Jason said, feeling proud of his small achievement. Lyra's eyes sparkled with something like amusement. "You are learning fast," she said. "I can teach you more. You want to learn?" Jason smiled, eager to continue. "Yes, please." The two of them spent hours by the stream, exchanging words, gestures, and smiles. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the landscape, Jason realized how much he had learned in such a short time. Not just about Lyra's language, but about her, too. She wasn't just an alien species. She was an individual, with thoughts, feelings, and experiences that were uniquely hers. He had never thought about it that way before. Most humans saw aliens as either a threat or a mystery to be solved. But Lyra was neither. She was real in the same way he was real. As the days passed, Jason found himself opening up to Lyra in ways he hadn't expected. He told her about his life on Earth, about his family and the adventures he had been on. He spoke of his dreams of exploring the stars, of seeing new worlds and meeting new civilizations. Lyra listened intently, her eyes never leaving him as she took in every word. In return, Lyra shared stories of her own life. She spoke of her people, the culture of her planet, and the harmony they lived in with nature. She told him that her people had a deep connection to their world, that they believed in balance and respect for all living things. It was a belief Jason could understand, even though it was different from what he had known. But even as they grew closer, there were moments when Jason felt a strange tension between them. He couldn't quite explain it, but there were times when Lyra would suddenly fall silent, her eyes distant, as if she were lost in thought. Jason wondered if there was something she wasn't telling him, something deeper than what she had shared. So far, one evening, as they walked through a forest, Jason decided to ask her about it. "Lyra," he began carefully, "is there something you're not telling me? I feel like there's more to your story than what you've shared." Lyra stopped walking and turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable, and for a moment Jason feared he had overstepped. But then, slowly, she nodded. "There is much." "More," she said quietly, her voice soft but filled with something Jason couldn't quite place. "But some things are not for you to know yet. Not yet." Jason's heart skipped a beat. He had never meant to pressure her. He wasn't trying to pry into her personal life, but something about the way she said it made him feel like he was on the edge of something important. There was a weight to her words that he couldn't ignore. "Okay," Jason said gently, his voice filled with understanding. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." Lyra looked at him, her gaze steady. "You are not making me uncomfortable," she said, her eyes softening. "It is just that there are things I must share in my own time." Nodded, accepting her answer for now. He knew that Lyra wasn't ready to open up completely, and he respected that. But he couldn't help but feel a sense of curiosity. What was it that she wasn't telling him? And why did it feel so important? The silence between them stretched for a few moments, but it wasn't awkward. It was comfortable. They didn't need to speak all the time to understand each other. In fact, Jason realized some of their most meaningful moments had been spent in silence, just enjoying each other's company. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. "You are different from the others," she said, her voice low. "You don't see me as a strange creature. You see me as ... someone." Jason looked at her, surprised. "Of course, I see you as someone. I've never thought of you as anything else." Lyra smiled, a soft, genuine smile. "That is why I trust you." Jason's heart swelled. He'd never expected to feel this way about an alien. And yet, here he was, building a bond with her, one that felt more real than anything he had ever known. As the stars began to twinkle in the sky above, Jason realized that this journey was far from over. There was so much more to discover, not just about the planet or its inhabitants, but about Lyra and about himself. He couldn't wait to see where this connection would take them. As the days passed, Jason and Lyra's bond grew stronger. They continued to spend more time together, learning from each other. Jason had never thought he would form a friendship like this. He'd come to this planet for research, to explore, and gather data. But in Lyra, he had found something far more valuable than just information. He'd found a connection, a bridge between two worlds that were more similar than he could have ever imagined. They often explored the planet together, visiting forests, rivers, and mountains that Jason had never seen before. Lyra would share the names of the plants and animals in her language, teaching him more about the planet than any report ever could. In turn, Jason would describe the stars, the earth, and the people he left behind. They had become students of each other, learning not just about each other's cultures, but about their lives and the things that made them who they were. But despite the growing trust between them, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing. There were times when Lyra would fall silent, her eyes distant, as if she were thinking about something far away. And when she did speak, there was always a sadness in her voice, as if there was something she was holding back. Oh. Jason tried not to press her, respecting her need for space, but he couldn't help but wonder. What was she hiding? What was it that made her so quiet at times? One evening, as they walked through a dense forest filled with tall, twisted trees, Jason decided to bring it up again. They had just spent hours exploring a hidden part of the planet, and the sun was beginning to set. The sky above them was painted in shades of purple and orange, casting a warm glow over the landscape. Jason looked over at Lyra, who was walking just a few paces ahead of him. Her lavender skin seemed to glow in the fading light, and for a moment, he simply admired her, his heart swelling with affection. "Lyra," Jason said softly, catching up to her. "There's something I've been wondering." She stopped walking and turned to face him, her expression calm but alert. "What is it?" she asked. Jason hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to phrase his question. He didn't want to make her uncomfortable, but the curiosity inside him was too strong. "You've been ... distant at times," he said gently. "I can tell that there's something you're not telling me, something that's bothering you." Lyra's eyes flickered, with a mix of emotions, but she didn't look away. For a moment, there was silence between them, broken only by the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. Jason held his breath, waiting for her response. "I didn't want to tell you," Lyra said quietly, her voice tinged with sadness. "I thought it would be easier if I kept it to myself." Jason felt a knot form in his stomach. "What is it?" he asked, his voice soft but insistent. "You can tell me. Whatever it is, I won't judge you." Lyra took a deep breath, her eyes searching the horizon as if she were trying to find the right words. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "My people... We are not like you. We do not live as you do. Our lives are tied to this planet, to the land and the creatures that live here. We are caretakers, protectors." Jason listened closely, sensing that she was about to reveal something important. "I was chosen to be a guardian of this place," she continued, "but my role comes with a heavy responsibility. My people... They do not trust outsiders. They fear that contact with other species will bring harm to our world. And because of that, I have been... isolated." Jason's heart ached as he realized the weight of her words. Lyra had spent her entire life bound by the expectations of her people, forced to carry the burden of their fears and suspicions. Had never had the freedom to live her life on her own terms. "You're not alone anymore," Jason said gently, stepping closer to her. "You don't have to carry that burden by yourself. You have me. I won't leave you. I'll help you." Lyra looked at him, her eyes searching his face for any trace of insincerity. When she found none, she nodded slowly. "I know," she said softly, "but there is more. The elders of my people. They believe that outsiders bring destruction. And they have made it clear that if I continue to interact with you, there will be consequences." Jason felt a chill run down his spine. "What kind of consequences?" Lyra hesitated, her eyes darkening. "They will banish me," she said, her voice barely audible. "Will no longer be a part of my people. I'll be cast out, forced to live alone, separated from everything I have ever known." Jason's heart sank. Couldn't imagine what it must be like for her to be caught between two worlds, knowing that her very connection to him could cost her everything. "I'm so sorry," Jason whispered, his voice filled with empathy. "I never meant for any of this to happen." Lyra shook her head. "It is not your fault. You did not ask for this either. But it is the way of my people. They do not understand, and I fear. I fear that I will lose everything." Jason reached out and gently took her hand in his. "You don't have to lose everything. We can figure this out together. There has to be a way." Lyra looked down at their intertwined hands, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I hope you are right, Jason. I truly do." For a long moment they stood there, holding hands in the quiet forest, the weight of the situation settling over them. The bond between them had become something deep and unbreakable. But now, it was also a source of great danger. Jason knew that no matter what happened, he would not leave her side. They had already begun to cross a line that neither of them could undo, but he would find a way to protect her, to help her through whatever came next. And in that moment, as the stars began to twinkle above them, Jason made a silent promise to himself. He would do whatever it took to keep Lyra safe. The days after their conversation were filled with tension and uncertainty. Jason couldn't shake the weight of Lyra's words from his mind.
Us.
He knew she was facing a choice, one that could change everything for her.
Us.
He had to help her, but he wasn't sure how. Lyra had always been strong, calm, and capable. But now Jason saw a side of her he hadn't expected. Fear. It was early the next morning when Jason woke to find Lyra waiting by the edge of their camp. Her figure stood out against the darkening sky, silhouetted by the pale light of the rising twin suns. She was calm, but her eyes betrayed the storm of thoughts that must have been swirling inside her. Jason knew that she had made her decision, but he didn't know what it was. "Morning," Jason said softly as he approached her, his voice still groggy from sleep. He wasn't sure what to say, but he knew he had to keep moving forward, just like they always did. Lyra turned to face him, a gentle but serious expression on her face. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I can't stay here anymore." Jason's heart sank. He had hoped that somehow things would work out, that the bond they shared would be enough to protect her. But hearing the finality in her voice hit him harder than he had expected. "You mean you're going to leave?" Jason asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra nodded slowly. "It's the only way. My people will never accept you. I know that now. If I stay, they will force me to leave the land, the life I have always known, and I will lose everything." Jason stepped forward, his mind racing. "But you don't have to do this, Lyra. You don't have to leave everything behind." Lyra looked at him, her expression unreadable. "I do not have a choice. It's the way of my people. We must protect our home, and the elders believe that outsiders will destroy it. If I stay, I risk bringing destruction upon everything." Jason's heart clenched at the thought of her leaving.
At the bond they had built, the quiet moments they shared.
The simple joy of learning from one another, it all felt so fragile now. "But it's not true," Jason said urgently. "We're not here to harm you or your people. I came here because I wanted to understand. I wanted to learn about your world, your people." Lyra took a deep breath, her eyes closing for a moment. When she opened them again, they were filled with sorrow. "I know that. I know you. But the others, they will never understand. I can't change their minds." Jason felt a wave of helplessness wash over him. He couldn't let her go, not like this. "We can find a way, Lyra. We can talk to them. I can explain everything. We can show them that we mean no harm." Lyra shook her head slowly. "It's not that simple. The elders have their beliefs, and they are not willing to change. If I stand against them, I will be cast out. And you would be in danger as well." Jason didn't know what to say. He could see the pain in her eyes, the weight of the decision she had made. He didn't want to make her stay if it meant risking her life, but he couldn't bear the thought of losing her. "Either I can't lose you," Jason said, his voice breaking. He didn't care if it sounded desperate. He had to let her know how much she meant to him. "I've never met anyone like you. You've changed everything for me. I can't just let you go." Lyra looked down, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I wish I could stay. But if I do, it will bring danger to both of us. My people will never forgive me for this, and I can't let them destroy everything I've known." Jason reached out and gently took her hand in his. "And we'll leave together. We'll find a way to make it work. We'll go to the Federation, or we can start fresh somewhere else. We don't have to be alone." Lyra's eyes widened, and for a moment, she looked unsure. "You would do that? You would leave your own people, your own world, to be with me?" Jason nodded without hesitation. "Yes, I would. Because being with you is more important to me than anything else. I'll do whatever it takes to be with you." Lyra's expression softened, but there was still a hint of doubt in her eyes. "But what about your people? Your mission? You came here to explore, to gather data? What will happen to all of that?" Jason smiled gently. "Data will still be there, but it's not as important as you are. I've realized that. There's nothing more important than being with you, helping you, and making sure you're safe. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, her gaze searching his face for any sign of insincerity. But all she saw was the truth in his eyes. She nodded. Double quotes then. ... I will stay, she said softly. But we must be careful. We cannot risk everything. Jason's heart lifted in relief. We'll be careful, I promise. We'll make it work. Lyra squeezed his hand gently. I trust you, Jason, and I will stand with you. Together, we can find a way. They stood there for a moment, their hands, still joined, the weight of their decisions settling over them. Jason knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. But as long as they were together, he believed they could face anything. As the suns began to rise higher in the sky, casting a golden glow over the landscape, Jason and Lyra made a promise to each other. They would not let fear or the weight of tradition tear them apart. Together, they would find a way to overcome the obstacles in their path. And with that, they took the first step toward their new future, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The days that followed were filled with uncertainty. Jason and Lyra knew that they couldn't stay on the planet much longer. Every moment they spent there, the risk of being discovered grew. Lyra had made the decision to stay with Jason, but that decision came with consequences. Her people wouldn't just let her go without trying to stop her, and they would never allow an outsider to remain. Jason knew that they had to leave, but the question was where they would go. As they walked together through the forest, the tension between them had not entirely disappeared. It wasn't fear of each other. It was fear of what the future held. The elders of Lyra's people had already made their stance clear. Any interaction with outsiders would be punished. Lyra was risking everything: her place among her people, her connection to the land, and the life she had always known. She was scared, but Jason could see that she was also determined. We can't stay here forever, Jason said one evening. As they sat by the river, the water was calm, its surface reflecting the stars above. The night air was cool, and the sound of the water helped to calm their minds. Jason had tried to think of solutions, but there didn't seem to be an easy answer. Lyra sighed, looking out at the river. I know we can't, but I don't know where we can go. My people will come for me, Jason. They will try to bring me back no matter where we go. I can't just run away. I have to face them. Jason shook his head. We don't have to face them alone. We'll figure it out together. I'm not leaving you. We'll find a way. Lyra turned to look at him, her eyes searching his face for any sign of doubt. She found none. You're willing to leave everything behind to be with me? She asked softly, her voice filled with emotion. You would do that for me? Jason nodded firmly. I would. You're worth it, Lyra. I've never felt anything like this before. What we have is ... real. I won't let anyone or anything take that away from us. Lyra looked down at their hands, which were still joined. She hadn't realized how much she had come to depend on him, how much she had come to care for him. Life had always been so tied to the planet, to her people, but now she felt torn. Jason was right. She couldn't run forever, but maybe, just maybe, they could build something new. Together, after a long pause, she spoke again. You're not afraid? Not even a little. Jason smiled. Of course I'm afraid, but fear doesn't change anything. It doesn't stop us from moving forward. We can't let fear control us. Lyra nodded slowly. She knew that what Jason was saying was true. For too long, she had lived in fear of what would happen if she defied the expectations of her people. Now, with Jason by her side, she didn't feel so alone. She felt like maybe, just maybe, they could face the future together. I don't want to be afraid anymore, Lyra said quietly, her voice filled with resolve. I don't want to hide who I am or what I want. Jason squeezed her hand. Then don't. You don't have to hide. Not with me. For the first time in what felt like forever, Lyra smiled. It was small, but it was real. Thank you, Jason. You make me believe that we can do this. The next day, they made the decision to leave the planet. They couldn't stay in hiding forever, and Lyra knew that if she stayed too long, her people would come looking for her. They would try to bring her back, and Jason would be in danger. So they packed what little they could carry and made their way toward the shuttle. As they walked through the forest, Lyra couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness. She was leaving behind everything she had known: her home, her people, the land she had sworn to protect. But at the same time, she felt a sense of freedom she had never known before. She wasn't bound by tradition anymore. She wasn't bound by the expectations of her people. She was free to choose her own path. Jason, walking beside her, could feel the weight of the decision they were making. He knew it wasn't easy for her, but he also knew that it was the right thing to do. She had made her choice, and now they would face whatever came next together. They reached the shuttle just as the sun began to set, casting a warm golden light over the landscape. Jason set the coordinates for the nearest Federation outpost, knowing that it would be a long journey, but it was one they would take together. Before they boarded the shuttle, Lyra turned to Jason, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Not afraid of what comes next?" she asked again, her voice soft but hopeful. Jason looked at her with a smile. "I'm afraid, yes, but not of you, not of us. Together we can face anything." And with that, they boarded the shuttle and left the planet behind, as they soared through the stars. Jason and Lyra knew that their future was uncertain, but they also knew that they were no longer alone. They had each other, and that was enough. The universe was vast and full of unknowns, but they were ready to face it together, side by side.